The KC Show on Cork's Red FM.
Growing up in Dublin, John Kavanagh was a skinny young lad who was frequently bullied, and as a young man, after suffering a very bad beating when he intervened to help a woman who's been attacked, he decided that he had to learn self-defence himself. And before long, he was training fighters in a tiny shed and promoting the earliest mixed martial arts events in the country. And then a cocky kid called Conor McGregor walked into his gym. Coach Kavanagh, can you believe the journey that you've had so far?
If someone had told me a couple of years ago I would have made it to Red FM, I would have never believed them.
The pinnacle of it all, John.
I'm done now.
It's a phenomenal few years for you. It really has been. I mean, you know, from those early years of you learning your craft and building up your skills to opening that little gym and to where you've arrived at.
Yeah, still sometimes catches me when I get to think about it, which I don't do too often, but when I do, it is still surprises me.
When you say you don't think about it, isn't it one of those important things that you should kind of wallow in your glory and just realise that all the stuff that you've achieved so far, is that not important to you?
I maybe once a year or something, but I'm just too busy. Once one show is over, obviously UFC New York was historic for a bunch of reasons, but as soon as I landed on Wednesday, I had a UFC in Belfast. I had two guys fighting on that card, and when that was done, I had I've got a big card now at the end of the year, December 16th. I have 11 fighters on the card in Dublin, so you're always sort of chasing your tail a little bit, but there'll be plenty of time in the future to sit down and think about it.
Actively one-on-one, how many lads are you coaching at the moment?
We're close to 50 now.
Oh wow,
50 fighters. Yeah, so it's very, very busy.
And I'm sure because of the explosion of MMA and the hype around what you do as a coach, I mean, you're seeing amazing talent cutting through. Is there any Conor McGregor 2.0s coming up the line?
Well, just as like Conor wouldn't have liked him to be compared to any fighter before him, my next wave of guys will be their own men. You know, they'll stand on their own 2 feet. Yeah. I've got a lot of talent here, a lot of very skilled fighters. James Gallagher's co-main event December 16th in Dublin. That's going to be a massive show, shown all over the world. Bellator is a huge organisation. And then, you know, on a par with him, there's a bunch of other guys, Dylan Tuke, Richie Smullen, Richard Kiley. I could kind of talk all day about them. And, you know, obviously I did great with the first wave of guys I've had, and these are kind of the next generation now. And I'm looking forward to see what records they can break. Good
stuff. So tell me about growing up. What was it that got you into the game you're in today?
Well, I guess very, very young, what got me into it was my dad. You know, I was only 4 or 5 when I started, so it was my dad who got me into it. But if I was to be honest, I was never that keen on it. I kind of went because I was told to go.
Okay.
And then when I was 17, 18, I pretty much was done with it. You know, my dad wasn't kind of forcing me to go anymore, so I didn't go. And then I had that incident I talk about in the book where I got badly beaten up when I was out with my girlfriend one night. And kind of all the training I had done didn't really stand to me. So I started researching what could I do to maybe make things a little bit easier for myself there. And to be honest, when I look back now, I realised I was actually just looking for confidence, self-confidence, rather than any physical skills. And that's when I came across UFC 1, and I thought that was fascinating. I saw him this skinny Brazilian guy being able to beat these big, huge guys quite easily and not really having to hurt them either, which was interesting to me.
Okay.
So I started that. That's 20 years ago now, I guess. And at the first couple of years was definitely about building up my confidence so that if I was in a physical situation, I could handle myself. But that never really came to. I just avoided situations where trouble happens. But the other side really caught on, and that was the sports side. And I just became obsessed with the sport. And one thing led to another, and here I am.
About 3.5 years ago, Conor walked into a studio. We were doing an afternoon show at the time, and my friend Lenny had been chasing Conor for an interview for a long time, and we nailed him down, and it was his first national radio interview. And he came in, and he was, as he is, just confident, full of chat, absolutely on the ball about his ability. That to you is the most important thing, having the ability, the skill and the confidence. They're the three things really, John.
Yeah, you know, I do find it, obviously some people have only heard of him in the last couple of years, but he's been with me since he's 17, I guess, so it's 10, 11 years, and I don't see a difference personality-wise. He drives a slightly nicer car now and wears 4 coats, but it's the same character that, you know, we became friends with in the gym. And, you know, he was back in the gym yesterday. It was actually his first session back in the gym since his big fight there, and he's just one of the guys in the gym, just that type of. I don't know whether it's an Irish thing that we just have kind of good banter, good sharp wit that we sometimes can catch the Americans out a little bit with.
Yeah,
and he's made that a career because, like you said, prize fighting is. You have to have the skills, you have to have the ability in the ring, in the cage, and Conor has certainly shown he has. But if you have that charm, that charisma, that X factor, whatever you want to call it, on the microphone, well, put those two together, and that's where you're going to get a superstar.
We're talking to Coach Kavanagh, and his book is called Win or Learn. Now, you've won loads, but there's been a lot of losses over the years, but one most frequently. What did you learn about the Diaz loss?
Every loss and every failure I've had in the last 20 years getting to where I am has been a great learning experience. It's why I fought for that title. I have a good relationship with Penguin, but I will say at the start they wanted to call it Out of the Cage, and I had a bit of a battle with them. I thought it was the most ridiculous title I'd ever heard.
Okay.
So I'm glad I got to get this title across, because although the story is heavily populated with kind of anecdotal stories about, my journey with Conor, I did want to get across the philosophy of the gym, which I think is the more important thing, and that is when we suffer a big loss, and few are more visible than a massive fight in Vegas, is that the response to that is not to quit. It's not to see losing as a reason to quit. It's to see losing as an opportunity to learn. If you want to know what physical skill we took away from the Diaz fight, was to be more efficient with our energy, and Conor has since launched his cardio program Fast, where we show exactly the changes we made in his cardio, in his conditioning approach. But for me, I think the number one physical skill we took from that loss, that we learned from that loss, was to be more efficient, and you can see that in his last two contests where he is a lot more he picks his shots a lot better now. Okay.
Could you say that the principles of what's in this book, John, you can adapt it to anything you're interested in life, really? Well,
to be honest, that's one of the biggest kicks I've got out of this book, is that I've had students in school message me, they failed an exam or whatever, and rather than kind of throwing a hissy fit about it, they seen where they went wrong, spoke to their teacher, learned the lessons from it, studied better, went on and aced the exam the next time. I've had people in medicine message me about how they've used it. I've had school teachers, all from different sports. And that was really the hope. I was a bit of a grand hope, but I really didn't want to just bring out a book that was about fighting. I wanted to bring out a book that was about sort of my approach and the gym's approach to certainly MMA contests, but also what got me from running a 400 square foot shed, teaching 20 guys martial arts, to having a 10,000 square foot gym with 11 other gyms around the country, and the world's most famous fighter. So the big, I think, mistake is when people have only heard about someone recently, they think it's an overnight success.
Of course, yeah.
Well, but I want to talk about the many times I failed, and the many knockbacks we've got, and what our response was to them. And I think that's applicable to anybody. I always, when I meet somebody that's successful, say like yourself, I always would ask them, I'm not too interested in your success stories. Tell me about the radio show you went for and you got knocked back. Tell me about the job interview you went for and you failed. What did you do with that loss? And that's the difference, in my opinion, between those who get to a position of success like yourself or like Conor, and people that see their first loss as a reason to quit and never get there. So
what kept you going through the kind of tougher times, when you could have folded the whole thing, where you could have just walked away from it all and gone on to do your mechanical engineering? What kept you ticking over?
Yeah, well, I'm actually a mechanical engineer. That was my degree. But yes, of course, it would be a lie to pretend that when you have a crushing defeat, whether that's when you're athletes in the octagon or when you get kicked out of the gym and you have to start all over again and your membership is dwindling, it would be a lie to say that every day you wake up smiling going, I'll definitely do it today. There is down days, but overall, number one factor was that I loved what I did, and I love what I do now. So I think if you really find something that you really enjoy, that you love to do, that will be enough to carry you through the dark days. That's what worked for me. If I was doing something I I didn't like, but I was trying to do it to make some money or to fame or whatever, you won't stick through the 10 or 15 years of being in the dark, being broke, never having anything. The last 3 years or so have been great, but I'm doing this 20 years.
But let's face it, John, you're as famous now as McGregor is. So how much has this changed you personally?
To be honest, I don't. Besides the odd car driving past and beeping at me, and I'm always wondering what the hell are they beeping at, and then they're waving, and you go, oh yeah, okay. Besides that, I don't see as much of it. My girlfriend says I get the kind of nice end of fame, and that the odd person will come up to me and say, it's great what you're doing. Really have a lot of respect. It's really nice. I would hate to have even 10% of what Conor has. Kind of like normal life is almost gone for him now. He can't just go into a shop and it's an event. There's going to be 100 people outside with cameras. So I like I said, I get the nice part. It's usually some couple comes up to me and the boyfriend's asking for a picture and the girlfriend's asking who's that.
And then he has to explain, and she goes, right. Yeah. That's why you're
bigger on the TV.
That's why you're up at 5 o'clock in the morning. How long can Conor McGregor stay at this level in the game, and who would your dream fight be for McGregor?
Good question. First off, he is. Let's say in combat sports, things have changed a lot in the last 10 years, where you can have someone like Bernard Hopkins, who's in his 50s now and he's still winning world titles because nutrition is so much more advanced now. Strength and conditioning training is so much better. So it really comes down to the fighter, how long they can go. Now, if you look at Conor's fights over the last couple of years, you can probably count on one hand any kind of significant shots he's taken or any damage he's taken. So he's a very healthy, young 28. So he really is only kind of getting into his stride. Yesterday he turned up at the gym in the morning and then he was back in the evening doing 2 sessions, and he's barely a week or two outside just winning a second world title, and he's already back in the gym asking questions, training hard, getting ready for the next one. What will be next? That's a more difficult question to answer. There's a lot of options there. There's a lot of balls in the air. So Conor's always very intelligent about this. He's sitting back. He's weighing up the pros and cons of each option, and I'm sure there'll be an announcement coming at some stage soon enough. So I'm excited to see what's next. For me, who's the ideal opponent? At lightweight, there's kind of 2 names being thrown around: Khabib and Tony Ferguson. Both of those guys are fantastic fighters. I would relish the challenge of preparing them for either of them. They're different style fighters, but I have no doubt in my mind that Conor will run through either one of them. He is, I believe, right now the best fighter on the planet. His skill set is just so high. His mental strength is so strong that I don't see anybody being able to survive with him in the octagon.
The stripping of the belt, John, was that Conor's choice, honestly, or was it the UFC going, look, it's in the terms and conditions, unfortunately you can only hold one belt? No, it was more the UFC, and for me personally, very disappointed with how they went about doing it. It's a very messy set of circumstances that led to it. Like, they lost the main event and then they haphazardly threw together a new main event, and they felt they had to make this for a title in order for it to sell. So they brought in another interim title that Jose Aldo already has, and then bumped Jose Aldo up to the current undisputed champion, which just seems ridiculous to me. Conor's only 11 months since he won that title, and there's been many examples of fighters waiting 15 months, 18 months before defending it. He's 11 months, and they stripped him of it. So I thought it was very short-sighted by the UFC and how they went about doing it. So that's that situation. Is this whole Mayweather hype just hype and rubbish? Do you think there's anything in it?
If the odds were good enough, I'd put a few quid on it.
Really?
For next year.
Wow.
If they were good enough.
But has he reacted to it? Has anybody been talking to anybody?
You can. I'm not breaking any news saying that this conversation's going back and forward for the last year or so. Is it getting any closer? I don't know. Is the short answer, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me to hear that it's going to happen. I mean, for Mayweather, he's 49-0. I'm sure he wants that 50th fight. It's a nice number. And right now, I mean, ask the average guy in the street, who do we want to see Mayweather fight? What fight's going to get the most amount of interest? And it would be a super fight with Conor. So certainly stranger things have happened in combat sports than a Mayweather Conor fight. So I wouldn't be surprised by it. So who knows? It's one of the many options that are there for Conor. So let's see how the next couple of weeks go.
It would be incredible, not only for the payday, but it'd probably the most hype fight of all time. That's coming out of your gym. Can you actually appreciate that?
Well, I mean, it seems to be every fight Conor does is the most hype fight of all time. I mean, the one in New York just broke pretty much every record that you could break. So it's a tagline we're getting somewhat used to. So yeah, I've no doubt this will be a very interesting 3 months lead up to it. The two of them are quite good on the mic, quite good at talking. So if it happens, I'll be as much a fan as anybody else to see it.
Good man. John, it's so good to talk to you. Coach Kavanagh is going to be in Cork in Eason's Patrick Street, 6 p.m. on Thursday, 1st of December. If you're a fan of your MMA, if you like watching Conor McGregor in action, this is a superb book, and go and meet the man himself. Get some photographs, get the book signed. John, continued success. So good to talk to you. Thanks so much for chatting.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the phone call.
The KC Show. You gotta get on up.
Gold PPI Award winner for Best Breakfast Show in Ireland.
Get up!